When you think of a good game to speedrun, what comes to mind? I'll take a guess that it's a single-player FPS or platformer. What I'm guessing didn't cross your mind is one of the most unique and fascinating speedrun games, Destiny. Destiny and its sequel, Destiny 2, are live service FPS MMOs. What that means is the game receives regular patches and updates to mechanics, weapons, armor, bugs, glitches, and basically everything about the game. This keeps the game fresh and enjoyable and allows all forms of new content to be added to the game. However, as a speedrun game, it's rather unstable, as you never know when the stuff you're using to go fast might be changed or removed in the next update. Despite this, speedrunning in Destiny came about almost immediately. This was due to most activities having in-game timers which showed you how fast you completed that mission or activity. Destiny raids are the pinnacle of the speedrunning content, with a team of 6 players battling through puzzles and against bosses in incredible environments. In this respect, Destiny offered something that almost no other game could: 6-player cooperative speedrunning. There are an endless supply of runs to choose from when it comes to world record progression in Destiny, but the most interesting in my opinion has to be the Leviathan. The Leviathan raid was the first raid released with Destiny 2, and over its 3-year lifespan has continued to stay interesting and competitive in the speedrunning scene. Today, I'm going to be taking you on a journey through the world record history for Destiny's Leviathan raid. An ancient proverb tells that the first completion is also the first speedrun.
Get off, get off.
No.
Shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him.
Shoot him.
Nade, supers, anything.
Shoot him. Shoot him. One. Got him.
Let's go. Got him.
Oh my god. Woo!
Oh my god.
Nice!
Let's go.
Oh man, that was too close.
That was way too
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Nice!
Imperial and
Oh my god, we did it. We did it.
With a time of 5 hours, 34 minutes, and 49 seconds, a team of Slayerage, Epic Cookies, Dominic X, Lil Noah, Skullix, and Eva became the first players to clear the Leviathan raid. Tens of thousands of players attempted the Leviathan on day 1, and hundreds of thousands more watched on from home. This first completion was no easy feat. After the raid was first beaten, it didn't take long for speedrunners to come a-knocking. The earliest documented speedrun I could find was from the 18th of September, just 5 days after the world's first completion. The run was uploaded to YouTube by Italian clan Feral Blood, consisting of DigiHidingo, Grizzlyberg, MattyEX83, Frooster, White Noise, and Simply Power. The end goal of the Leviathan raid is to defeat Callus. To get to him, you must first pass 3 encounters: Gauntlet, Dogs, and Baths, which are designed like tests for the players. Every week, the order of these 3 encounters rotate in a 6-week cycle. To get between these encounters, players can go through another mini-encounter called Castellum, or through hidden passageways in the underbelly of the ship. The fastest way is always through the underbelly, provided that you know the correct routes to take. The rotation for this run was Baths, Dogs, Gauntlet. To get to Baths, the team used the levers on the left side of the entrance to open the underbelly, starting Baths in just under 3 minutes. At Baths, 4 players stand on outside plates, while the other 2 players rotate between them. Players go through the middle plate to refresh the buff which allows them to stand on the outside plates. Once the plates have been stood on long enough, sets of lanterns will open around the middle plate, which are destroyed to complete the encounter. This encounter is gated by how long players stand on the plates, and there's not much to speed up outside of starting it and destroying the lanterns quickly. To get to Dogs, the team opened the underbelly through the levers and went quickly down the drain, killing an enemy along the way to restock on ammo. At Dogs, the team cleared ads with primary while scavenging ammo, and waited for everyone to be ready before starting the encounter. The goal of Dogs is to kill the 6 dogs that appear around the room. The best way of doing this is to collect empowering spores, which increases your damage against the dogs substantially. To get the buff, 4 players stand next to flowers around the room, then one of the other 2 players shoots the flower with a crystal, releasing the spores, 12 per flower if all 4 players are there. The 4 players grabbing spores must also avoid the dogs when going to the flowers, as if any player is caught, no more spores can be collected and the damage phase starts. In this run, the team quickly collected 24 empowering spores, sprinting between the flowers instead of crouching stealthily. This showed some early mastery of the routes of each dog, as the team was easily able to avoid detection. 24 stacks of spores allowed the team to kill dogs with cluster bomb rockets. The reason cluster bombs were used is because the extra explosives could be trapped under the dogs and deal a ton of damage. After all the dogs were dead, the underbelly was once again opened, and the players ran to the gauntlet. Interestingly, the team did not use the fastest route through the underbelly. This was most likely due to not knowing how to open it, as the buttons and levers were well hidden. At Gauntlet, players first clear a wave of enemies, then 2 players pick up relics. These players are teleported inside a circular gauntlet, and must complete a lap in order to be teleported back out and deposit their relics in the middle of the arena. In order to not explode, the players running the gauntlet must pass through orbs which appear in 4 gates throughout the run. These orbs will reset the timer, counting down to the player's death. In order to open these gates for the runners, the other players must stand on the plate corresponding to the gate, and shoot 2 arrows based on the opposite of what the runner sees. In this case, the runner sees bottom, and the 2 outside players shot top and middle. Once the 2 runners slam their relics in the middle, the process repeats 2 more times, with pits opening up inside the gauntlet to make running slightly harder. Once 3 rounds are complete, 6 relics spawn in the middle, and all players must run the gauntlet, requiring 3 slams for a total of 9 to complete the encounter. With the gauntlet completed, all that was left was Callus, which was once again reached using the underbelly. Callus was started instantly by shooting his cup, and the players cleared all the enemies as fast as possible. After that, all the players are teleported to the Void Room, with 3 orbs beyond a small barrier allowing up to 3 players to be teleported back into the first room. The team opted to send only 2 players, the reason for which I'll explain a little later. The players left in Void would start to be sucked towards a massive Callus head, stopped by the small barrier. 3 players would then see a different symbol on Callus's head. These symbols corresponded to 4 different enemies in the throne room. The players teleported back to the throne room, had to see which symbol was missing, and kill the corresponding enemy. This is repeated 3 more times, after which the Callus head in Void starts spewing skulls. Destroying a skull increases the Force of Will buff, which will increase the damage to Callus in the damage phase. The amount of skulls that spawn is based on a ratio between the amount of players in the throne room and the amount of players in the Void room. Decreasing the amount of players in the throne would lead to more skulls spawning, as the game would use it as a catch-up mechanic. If you were down on players, you would need more skulls in order to kill. The team used Cold Heart and auto rifles to output a ton of bullets to deal with the massive amount of skulls, with the team reaching Force of Will times 92. This high skull count allowed the team to kill in just 1 phase. For DPS, the players used Empowering Rifts to give their weapons a 25% damage buff. The weapons of choice were Cluster Bomb Rockets and Cold Heart, as that did the most DPS at the time. Grenades and super abilities were also used for any extra damage the players could get. After killing Callus, he raises a final stand shield, which must be destroyed to end the encounter. The mission complete banner appears when the team reaches the chest at the end, clocking the run at 27 minutes, 28 seconds.
27 minuti e 28 fottutissimi secondi.
The reaction from the runners says it all. This run was pretty good for how early on it was. However, there weren't many notable strategies other than the 2-player throne room strat for Callus. This run was very simple, with first try, 1 phase completions of each encounter, setting a baseline for future speedruns. The next run was set only 3 days later. A 25-34 by Clan Redeem, made up of Sweatcicle, Indica, Glad, Modern, Flesh Crunch, and Senior Snubby. Even while saving almost 2 full minutes, this run still wasn't that polished, and used the same basic strategies, just executed a little better. The rotation for this run was Dogs, Gauntlet, Bards. To get to Dogs, 2 players open the underbelly using the levers at the bottom. The rest of the team enters into the underbelly and goes towards Dogs. Once at Dogs, they clear ads and kill with 24 stacks, same as the previous run. After this, the underbelly is open again, and the players run to the Gauntlet encounter, this time using the fastest path. At Gauntlet, players clear the ads from a lot closer to the doors, and clear the mages with cluster rockets and supers to get a quick kill. When it comes to running the Gauntlet, one side has a Warlock running, while the other has a Titan. This was because the team was still trying to figure out which class, jump ability, and exotic armor combo was the fastest, with them even arguing during the run about which was faster. This run also has one of the first recorded instances of a no gate in the gauntlet, where the gate that should prevent you from running for 3 seconds after picking up the orb fails to spawn. This allows you to start the run earlier and saves about 3 to 4 seconds if you're prepared to fully take advantage of it. The circumstances which create this glitch are still largely unknown, although it is widely believed to be the result of ping and networking. After Gauntlet, the underbelly was opened, and the trek to the baths encounter began. At baths, not much changes, rotating between plates, staying on them. However, the team deactivates the plates before the next player is on, which causes a slight time loss at the point when no one is standing on the plate. These runs clearly showed that teams were still playing it as safe as possible in order to complete a run, and not taking many risks that might result in a reset. This was also partly because, back in the day, raids did not have any way to reset the checkpoints, so resetting would mean either loading in from a different character with a fresh checkpoint, or completing the entire raid. The ability to reset checkpoints was added with the launch of Black Armory, over a year later. Anyway, in order to kill the lanterns at baths, the players used Titan's hammers, Warlock's Nova Bombs, and rocket launchers, with hammers seeming like a very quick kill if all players were using them. After baths, underbelly is open with more levers, and all players transition to Callus. Callus is done identically to the previous run, 2 players in the throne room and 4 in the void. The same DPS strategy was also used for a 1-phase kill, this time with 107 force of will. The run ended with a time of 25:34, which was a sloppy run even by the standards at the time. That very afternoon, the same Redeem team went back into the Leviathan and got this run.
Ready? Come on.
And
19.
Time.
Boom.
24,
20.
I got
19.
20.
I got
20.
20.
It's a 20. It's a 20.
It's a 20.
24, 20.
Dude,
We just beat our own record by
Oh.
1 minute and 14. Holy shit. GG's. Good shit, boys.
A 24:19, over 1 minute faster than the previous run. How did they do it? Well, it was simple. They just went faster. Dogs was started 13 seconds faster than the previous run due to faster, cleaner movement. An even better dogs kill resulted in dogs ending 20 seconds ahead. Transitioning to the gauntlet, faster gauntlet runs and faster ag clear resulted in the team being 50 seconds ahead at the end. Similar transitions to Baths and Callus kept the run at 50 ahead going into Callus, where a further 20 seconds was saved on the ag clear and the Callus kill. Overall, a much cleaner run, and a respectable time, but considering the lifespan of the previous records, how long could this one last? The answer to that would come with some new faces. Euros Clan, containing Hova, Whammy, G-Shark, Scrub, Chris Kaiser, and Edwin. The rotation was also new. Dogs, Baths, Gauntlet. For dogs, the clear and kill is identical to the previous run, with the dogs dead at the exact same time. At Baths, players kept the bath plates active at all times, which made up a couple of seconds. Merciless, Titan's Hammers, and Nova Bombs being used for a 7-second faster lantern kill than the previous record. In the Gauntlet, Wardcliff Coil is used to spawn trap adds, with 1 Warlock and 1 Titan as runners. This run showed that players were confident enough to skip an orb in the Gauntlet. This allowed for faster runs, as they didn't have to stray away from the fastest path in order to grab an orb. Another interesting strategy was for the Warlock to run the Blink jump for the first run. Blink is a short-range teleport, and is the fastest jump ability in the game. However, it can be very risky. In the second and third Gauntlet rounds, hits open up that players can easily fall into, especially with Blink. Because of this, the runners switch back to the Warlock's normal jump for those rounds. Would players be able to play well enough to use Blink for all 3 rounds in the future? Euros had a 3-second faster Gauntlet segment, ending just about 10 seconds ahead. This run was the first that took advantage of the infamous coil glitch. This was when switching from Wardcliff Coil with at least 1 ammo to any other heavy weapon would grant an increase in heavy ammo, instead of a decrease like it was meant to. This was used in Baths and at Callus to get more rockets, and in the Gauntlet after using Wardcliff for ag clear. Most of these time saves were small however, and most of the time saved on this run was in the rotation having shorter transitions between the encounters. They started Callus 30 seconds ahead of the previous run because of this. For Callus, the team originally sent 2 players to Throne and 4 to Void, as before. However, a mistake by a player in Void caused him to die and be sent back to the Throne, continuing the encounter with a 3-3 split. This caused the team to only get 91 skulls, leading to a slower kill than expected. This was also the first run where Mission Complete was changed to when the final elevator starts moving, not as the chest at the end is reached. This meant that Euros would end up 41 seconds ahead of the previous run, with a 23:38. If the previous run's mission complete was at the same point, it would have been a 23:53. This meant that the 30 seconds Euros were ahead were halved by the mistakes at Callus. Overall, a decent run, with an unfortunate ending. This run showed how the encounter rotation could make a serious impact in the world record times. A couple of weeks later, on October 16th, 2017, the same team would again set foot in Leviathan for another world record. This time the rotation was Baths, Gauntlet, Dogs. Underbelly is no longer open normally, and instead a player emote clips through a wall. The way this works is that the emote moved the player backwards, and if you cancel the emote when you are behind your starting position, it would place you there, allowing you to go through a wall or other object, provided it was thin enough. Doing this clip allowed the player to get into the underbelly and pull the team to Baths while the rest of the team farmed ammo at the start. A quicker kill on the lanterns again saved a second or two over the previous run. The Baths to Gauntlet transition was also about 2 seconds faster, with a 5-minute 49-second Gauntlet segment, 25 seconds faster than the last run, saving the bulk of time in the run. Dogs was again done the same, with the players playing it more safe and waiting to start the encounter until everyone was in position, as to not throw a pretty good paced run. As before, much time is saved on the transitions, over 50 seconds on the run to Callus because of the rotation. This time, at Callus, a successful 4-2 split void to throne is achieved, and over 100 skulls, leading to a much faster kill than the previous one, almost a 1 plate. Overall, these time saves ended up with a run 1 minute and 18 seconds ahead of the previous, with a 22:10. So close to a sub 22 minute run. Could it happen on an even faster rotation? Well, we wouldn't have to wait long to find out. Just 4 days later, October 20th, 2017, the same 6 broke yet another record, and not just the sub 22, but the sub 21. 2 whole minute barriers. How do they do it? Well, as you might expect, it was to do with the rotation. Because of the Leviathan's layout, all previous weeks had encounters that crossed back over or around other encounters. A way to think about this layout is that Baths on the left, Dogs in the middle, and Gauntlet on the right. If you had to go straight from Baths to Gauntlet or vice versa, it would take a long time since you would have to cross almost the entire map. The best rotations to run would be ones with either Gauntlet or Baths first, followed by Dogs in the middle, and the opposite one last. The absolute best rotation would have the encounter closest to Callus last, and the encounter closest to entrance first. This run was the first to be done on that god rotation. Gauntlet, closest to the entrance, Dogs, and then Baths, closest to Callus. The week of this rotation would come to be known as Levy Week. As the order of encounters was on a 6-week cycle, if you wanted to compete for the record, you had to wait 6 weeks, with only 1 week of running. I see this both as a positive and a negative. Only having a limited time to run meant you had to make your runs count, but any RNG or randomness was much more punishing, and if your schedules didn't line up with the other players for that specific week, it'd be a pain. However, for many more dedicated runners, only needing to take a few days or a week out of work or school to dedicate to runs was much more appealing than other runs, where you would have to run for many weeks or months in a row to get good times. Anyway, back to the run. In order to get to Gauntlet, the emote clip was once again used, but this time, instead of pulling solo, which was not possible at the time to Gauntlet, the player clipped through the door and opened the underbelly from the inside, allowing the other 5 to follow into the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet segment was 5:42, 7 seconds faster than the previous run, due to faster ad clear, mages, and runs. Faster everything, really. One unique strategy used in this run was one runner suiciding when they knew they would have been far behind the other runner. Because only all alive runners need to slam for the encounter to progress, if one is behind by a significant amount of time, you lose the amount of time between those two players' slams. If one runner dies and the other finishes, however, it still progresses the encounter at the speed of the first runner. One more slam will also be required on the final round to finish the Gauntlet. At Dogs, a mistake was made and only 19 stacks of spores were gathered, leading to a slower kill. For Baths, it's done like normal. Lantern kill is quick, Nova bombs, hammers, you get the picture. At Callus, the same strategies as the previous one were also used, with a 1-plate kill being executed, and a faster final stand shield saving even more time.
Come on, come on, come on. Yeah.
Chris.
Overall, this run ended almost a minute and a half ahead of the previous week's run, at 20 minutes, 41 seconds. However, during the run, the community had decided the emote clip used at the beginning should be banned due to its imminent removal by Bungie, and the sort of cheapness of being able to go through almost any wall anywhere with no real skill. Because of it being banned, this run was not recognized as the true world record. This didn't faze the team one bit, and they decided to run it back without the emote clip. With Chris Kaiser down, the team picked up a player from an LFG post, Mario. The team set back off into the Leviathan for a more legitimate run, this time opening the underbelly using the plates. The run used the same strategies as the 2041, with a faster dog kill due to more stacks and less dying. 6 seconds of time save was picked up and carried throughout the entire run, with yet another Callus 1 plate finishing with a time of 20 minutes, 35 seconds. Would another minute barrier be broken? How much time was there really left to save in Leviathan? A week passes. Nothing. 2 weeks. 3. 6. There was now a 12-week break between records, as the next Levy week, 6 weeks after the previous record, was on the same week as the launch of a new expansion, Curse of Osiris, which brought a brand new raid layer, Eater of Worlds. But that is for another time. Once again, Euro's clan flew back into Leviathan on January 15th, 2018. Armed with some new strategies, they were ready to break down another minute barrier. And break it, they did. The underbelly was once again open with the buttons to get to the gauntlet. Gauntlet ads are cleared with rally barricades for reload, making little downtime between kills. Time was also saved on the runners both being adept in practice using Blink, tying every run, with no suicides needed. This led to the team being 30 seconds ahead at the start of the final round. However, as the gate went down, 3 players stood still, and 2 of them started running backwards. What was going on? This strategy, affectionately known as the Euro strat, was first discovered by Spooder when he was having some fun in an LFG raid, and decided to run backwards in the gauntlet to try and meet the other runners halfway. He then realized this could be used to save time. If 2 people went backwards to the 3rd and 4th gates, and 1 person went forwards to activate the 1st and 2nd, all 4 gates would have been activated, spawning the finish line. The 3 other players could simply wait at the finish line and be teleported out. This cut the time of the final run in half, saving over 20 seconds alone, and was the first main sequence break in the run. With the time saved on Gauntlet, the segment was down to 4:52, almost a minute faster than all previous runs. At Dogs, only 12 stacks of empowering spores were gathered instead of 24, saving almost 20 seconds from not needing to run to the second flower. Baths is the same as previous runs, with Titan's Hammers absolutely cooking the lanterns. Callus now sends 3 to Void and 3 to Throne, which would save the 7 seconds it would usually take for the 3rd orb to disappear if only 2 players were sent back to the throne room. Just before the skulls start spawning, however, 2 players in the throne room suicide. This is because the skulls ratio only counted alive players, so the game thought that it was only 1 player in Throne to 3 players in Void, therefore spawning a lot more skulls. Overall, all these time saves added up to being over a minute 20, making the new record 19 minutes 14 seconds. This world record would mark the last time a console team would ever hold the world record, with most high-level players making the switch to PC in the future. With a 6-week wait in between runs, there was plenty of time to reflect on mistakes and develop new strategies. This meant that there were often massive jumps in the world record times between weeks. I say often. Just 1 week later, on January 22nd, a team from previous world record holders Redeem and another clan, Be Bold, would break the record. With the rotation being Baths, Dogs, Gauntlet, still the second best, but slower than the true Levy week. How do they do it? Well, it starts with the entrance. An out of bounds was used, dubbed the overbelly as inverse to the underbelly, because the easiest way to reach it was through the top of the map. One player would use this to jump above the regular area through a convenient hole to the side of a door into the Castellum. They would then go back in bounds through another hole, hitting a loading zone, which puts them back in the right area of the map. They then continue on to Baths to pull the team. While the player was pulling, the rest of the team farmed ammo and super on the enemies outside. At Baths, the encounter is cleared as usual, swapping plates, hammer titans for damage, you get the drill. Dogs and Gauntlet are done the same as the previous run, with similar segments. At Callus, one strategy is new. Still 3 players Void and Throne, but when Skulls come out, 2 players in Void as well as the 2 players in Throne Suicide, with 1 player alive in Throne to revive and kill the shield, and 1 player in Void to collect the skulls. Since a 1-to-1 ratio with only 1 alive in each, even more skulls spawn than a 1-to-3 ratio. It also let the team start the DPS phase earlier, when all 5 players were revived, instead of waiting for them to be teleported out of the Void. Because the run was on PC, there was significantly less frame drops when DPS in Callus, which allowed players to get their shots out quicker and kill faster. Despite the rotation, with all the new time saves, the run was 3 seconds quicker than the previous time, to a 19:11. With theories of the overbelly being used on the true Levy week to save even more time, this is where the run really starts to get interesting. Five weeks later, Clan Redeem was back in full force, with a team of Modern, Flesh, Glad, Sweat, Indica, and newly minted member Eon heading back into the Leviathan. Would they break 19 minutes? How low could it go? To start off, the team did a practice run-through, which clocked in 19:02. With record already beaten, the team pushed lower, and later that day achieved an 18:37, smashing through the 19-minute barrier. Still, with a lot of mistakes, the team ran it back once more, and on February 24th, they achieved this run. This time, the raid was started with only 4 players, all Titans. The Titans did the overbelly out of bounds, this time on the right hand side, to skip to the gauntlet. This saves over 30 seconds compared to previous runs on this rotation, skipping opening the underbelly and a large portion of the running. The reason the Warlocks didn't do the entrance was that they were simply too slow, and it was quicker to have them join in at gauntlet. Because of this, it was incredibly boring for them, and led to a lot lower morale in runs. A bit before the elevator goes up, the 2 Warlocks join in the game, and spawn inside the gauntlet. Because they spawn in dead, one of the Titans has to revive them, before continuing with their ad clear, while the other 3 Titans clear solo. This causes about a 5-second time loss compared to all players at the gauntlet and clearing ads instantly. Ad clear is now done with Midnight Coup, after a recent buff to the Rampage perk, which allowed it to one-tap headshot the Legionaries. The gauntlet segment in this run was 4:52, the same as previous runs. Dogs was done the same as previous runs, with sloppy ad clear losing a couple seconds, but with a much faster kill, saving about 5 overall. At Bards, the Lantern kill is about 5 seconds faster because of the new Leviathan raid mods. One of these buffed elemental ability and super damage by 25%, and another, called Striking Hand, buffed all damage a further 20% after a melee kill. These small time saves added up to being 25 seconds ahead of the 1911 at the end of the final encounter. However, because of the rotation, the run to Callus was another 25 seconds faster, leading to the team being 50 seconds ahead starting Callus. At Callus, some faster ad clear saved a few seconds, and equal skulls and kill ended with a time of 18 minutes 14 seconds, almost a full minute quicker. The question if yet another minute barrier break still loomed. Would more strategies emerge in the next 6 weeks? To find out, we head to April 9th, 2018, when new name Silumar would challenge the Redeem reign and make their claim to fame. The team consisted of ex-Euros world record holder, Scrub, along with Cremation, Andrew, Jazz, Turtle, and Ohei there. This time, the run started with all 6 players loaded in, with the 2 Warlocks using sword skating to keep up with the Titans. Sword skating is a movement method where swinging a sword and activating the Warlock's glide in quick succession resulted in a boost of speed forwards. All 6 players would do the overbelly entrance to the gauntlet, and with cleaner movement and plates, started gauntlet 10 seconds ahead, with a 5 seconds saved on ad clear in the first round from all the players being there. Gauntlet is the same as previous records, but cleaner, ending with a final slam 20 seconds ahead of the previous run, and a 4-minute 44-second segment. This was still not a perfect gauntlet, with a lot of time loss on the final round picking up the orbs, and about 1 second on the final slam not registering for one of the players. At Dogs, the Dogs are killed with Legend of Acrius due to an update buffing shotguns, saving around 2 to 3 seconds on the kill. Due to missed jumps on the transition to bars, the team lost around 5 seconds to starting it. However, they had left one player behind. What was he doing? Normally, when you're outside an encounter when it started, you'll get joining allies, which will teleport you back into the encounter. However, Cremation had discovered that if you were right under the hole that you jump up, you didn't get joining allies, and you could simply wait there until the encounter finished. When it finished, you could then go straight to Callus without having to wait to reopen the hole and jump down. This meant that only 5 players would be doing the boss encounter, but with quick enough rotations between the plates, this could be done in the same time as having 6 players. After all the lanterns are killed, the player underneath bars runs to Callus, while all the other players switch characters onto hunters and wait to rejoin. This skip set them up to be 45 seconds ahead starting Callus. However, since when the players rejoined, they were in pipeline, they had to get joining allies to get back into Callus. This meant the ad clear was going to be much slower, and a particularly slow clear this run cost about 10 seconds. Before being teleported into Void, the players set their spawn points by standing where they wanted the revive to appear. This led to closer, bunched revives, meaning that DPS was started much faster. The point of the players swapping to Hunter also became clear, with Celestial Nighthawk Golden Guns destroying Callus. After Callus's health bar is depleted, the players hide in order to make sure Callus doesn't try to shoot the players. This would block the final stand shield from appearing, since Callus would already be locked in the firing animation. This run ended 35 seconds quicker than last week, with a 17:39. Would Redeem be able to bring their record back? Would the next run be sub 17? 6 weeks after Silimar's run, the Warmight expansion released for Destiny 2. This brought with it a new destination, story, strikes, and a raid. But most importantly, it introduced something that would change the course of the game's history. It was known as Worldline Zero. Worldline Zero was an exotic sword, with its perk allowing the player to teleport themselves forward after sprinting for a short time. Very quickly, a quirk was discovered when combining a ledge, Worldline, and Warlock's Glide. By using Worldline off of a ledge and activating the glides shortly after, you could keep the momentum of the Worldline teleport, and boost yourself incredibly far and fast. This was revolutionary, and allowed speedrun times to be lowered across the board. Worldlining, as it was coined, was not only fast, but incredibly fun to perform, and relatively easy for people to pick up and learn. This, along with some other sandbox changes, would lead to a much anticipated Levy Week. On the 4th of July, 2018, Clan Redeem, consisting of Fami, Furdog, Glad, Flesh, Indica, and Chevy, would get this run. To start, the class distribution is different, with all 6 players being Warlocks. All players do the same overbelly out of bounds to the Gauntlet, this time using Worldline and Sword Skating. The Gauntlet in this run was a lot faster, with faster adds and especially mages using the Legend of Acrius. For the final round, since all players are Warlocks, they can all use Blink to get to the 4 gates, and from the finish to the final slam, saving a couple more seconds. Overall, this led to them being 12 seconds ahead at the end of Gauntlet, with a 4-minute 32-second Gauntlet segment. Dogs are killed using the Tractor Cannon Exotic's new ability to give a 50% debuff to all void damage. This is paired with the Nova Bomb Warlock's Scatter Grenade, which when placed at the right spot underneath the dog, bounces off the dog's hitbox many times, causing massive damage, allowing for an insanely fast kill at only 12 stacks, called a 1-scatter. On the dog kill alone, this saved 10 more seconds over the previous run. Baths is the same, however on the kill, Nova Bombs are used to one-shot the lanterns instead of Hammer Titans, because 1, it's faster, and 2, there aren't any Titans. This saved about 2 to 3 more seconds. The same leave and rejoin skip strategy is used to get to Callus, which starts over 20 seconds ahead of the previous run. Callus ad clear saved a couple more seconds, and the Callus kill was also faster, with an instant final stand kill with a Nova Bomb. This much cleaner run made for a 23-second world record at 17 minutes, 16 seconds. The reason you won't be able to find the run on speedrun.com today is that the team broke a rule by moving from the spawn positions before starting the timer, and the run was removed. This was only noticed a long time after it happened, so the time of 17:16 would still be the benchmark. However, in the coming months, the record still stood, with 2 expansions and new raids being released without any new Leviathan records. Would a sub 17 ever happen? The answer would come over 6 months later, on January 29th, 2019, with another new challenger to the Leviathan throne, the newly formed clan Luminous. Luminous, headed by ex-Redeem member Indica, along with Collectivity, Riot, Poonmaster, Soda Solus, and me, Aoterra. This was where my obsession for the raid started and has continued to this day. On entrance, more world lines and sword skates are used in order to speed things up a little. Because of the Forsaken update a few months prior, the game changed the way loading zones work, so if you hit them from out of bounds, or even sometimes inbounds, with a frame rate of above 60, there's a chance that you would die. Fun fact, this is really annoying. At Gauntlet, newly introduced energy shotguns are used to kill mages, allowing for the player on the skip to Callus later in the run to use a sword instead of something like Acrius to kill the mages. On the final run, a slow teleport out of Gauntlet will lose the team around 4 seconds. This was most likely caused by me or Soto's bad ping, and Riot's bad internet delaying the triggers. Dogs and baths were cleared about the same as in the previous run, with a faster dogs transition and ag clear saving about 5 seconds. Additionally, since the Callus skipper had a sword on, and I had no tracked cannon ammo, other players needed to track to cannon our dogs before killing their own, losing out on some potential time. A faster Bars Lantern kill also saved 5 more seconds over the previous run. For the Callus skip, instead of the player using Blink, they would use Wardline and Sword Skating up until the final purple hallway, where the player would use the speed boost from chaining Burst Glides in Dawnblade Super to achieve a high speed up to the Callus door. Because of Claw getting stuck in the pipes, the time save wasn't as good as it could have been, but it still saved 2 seconds over the previous run. This run is done after the new Forsaken subclasses were released, meaning that Well of Radiance is now available. Well of Radiance, paired with the new exotic Fusion Laser, 1000 Voices, and the new exotic Sniper Rifle, Izanagi's Burden, allowed for an incredibly quick Callus kill, saving about a second. All this led to the team ending up with a run over 20 seconds ahead, a 16:54, sub 17. In my opinion, this run marked a turning point for the game in terms of speedrunning. Competition was few and far between, especially for older content such as this. Before this run, Redeem held the world record for over 200 days, and also held world records in all other raids. This marked a change in pace for the whole community, and many more runners would emerge as a result of runs like this, and Destiny speedrunning becoming a lot more popular. It was also around this time that videos like this, and this, were blowing up in views, blasting Destiny speedrunning more into the public eye, as well as drawing new players in. Newer players are always good for a speed game, as they bring a fresh look to the game, thinking outside the so-called box that long-time runners tend to put around what is possible and what is not. New players can shatter these norms and lead to tons of new strategies and world records, as would happen in the coming Levy weeks. With all the new players interested in speedrunning, April 16th to April 23rd would be the first true Levy week. Levy week would become an event within the community every week that the rotation would come around, with multiple teams coming from all over the community to compete and put up times. It was a truly awesome thing to see, and a huge boost to the community. One of the other teams that were running in the same week were a team of Neko, Kaza, Lee, Dark, Crayons, and FG500, who achieved a time of 16:39. However, their run made use of the no gates glitch in the gauntlet.
Gates gone again. What the?
Yeah, same. Skip.
Really? Holy fuck, let's go.
They were able to have both runners get the no gates glitch on the same run, which meant they saved at least 4 seconds there, out of complete luck. This was unheard of at the time, as only limited accounts of the no gates glitch had ever been recorded, let alone on world record pace. Even rarer still, having it happen to both runners on the same round. Because no one knew how to replicate it, even the team that had it happen, it was a controversial time. However, Luminous was still running. And the very same night, just hours before the week was over, they got this run. Entrance was once again faster, saving 4 seconds of the 16:54. At Gauntlet, a slow ad clear left them only a second ahead, and well behind the 16:39. Dog's transition and ad clear were the same, but using Nova Bombs as well as scatter grenades on the kill saved over 5 seconds compared to the last run. A much better Baths transition saved another 5 seconds, having the team 11 ahead at the start of Baths. While Claw's run to Callus was once again scuffed, he still saved time over the previous run. This, paired with better ad clear at Callus, saw them 17 seconds ahead of the last run. But where was Soto? You see, leaving and rejoining a fire team is both hardware and network based, so it takes longer if your PC is worse or your ping is bad. Unfortunately, Soto had both of these. Bad hardware, and being from New Zealand, almost 9,000 miles away, he had awful ping. so the team employed a strategy to combat his bad load-in times, by having him join after the encounter had already started. This allowed the players with the good loads to start the encounter faster without waiting for him, while still having him be able to do damage when the time came. Unfortunately for this run, Siege Dancer's res was placed way too far away from the others, making it impossible to revive him in time for the damage phase to start. The team killed Callus anyway, ending with a time of 16 minutes 38 seconds, 1 second quicker than the controversial No Gates run.
Fuck you, Double Doors. Fuck you.
Fucking go.
Fuck you.
Let's fucking go, bro.
This run, and especially the run with the No Gates, would lead to more discussion in the community over allowing or disallowing the glitch in the runs. The next Levy week would fall on the week before a new expansion, Season of Opulence, coming with a new raid, Crown of Sorrow. Most players were preparing for that instead of running Levy, except for one team. Newcomers, Team Fast, headed by Granger, with Lee, Lippy, and Munch, along with Neko and QS from Silmar. The reason they would run, we'll find out later, but their goal was sub 16, another minute barrier break. They only had 2 days to run, and on the 3rd of June, they got this run. Entrance is the same as the previous record, with a slight time loss caused by Lippy missing his blink up the elevator. Gauntlet is done similarly, with all players clearing ads with Recluse, which makes it slightly faster. Mages are also killed with 1000 voices, saving time over the previous run, ending Gauntlet 12 seconds ahead. Dogs is done the same as the previous run, however, instead of going to bars like the rest of them, Granger takes a trip to the Castellum. What was going on? Well, this is the skip that Granger had discovered. Instead of sitting below the normal entrance when going to baths, an out of bounds from Castellum is used. From there, a faster route to Callus was found. Once the encounter is cleared, the player navigates the out of bounds area and comes back inbounds in the pipeline. From there, they go to Callus using the normal underbelly route. Unfortunately, after starting Callus over 30 seconds ahead of the last run, Neko's router started dying, and cost the team over 10 seconds between being teleported into Void and seeing the first symbol. A slow ad clear also cost around 5 seconds, however they still closed out the run, 25 seconds ahead, with a 16-13. Unhappy with this time, but with the week already over, we'd have to wait a bit longer to see a sub-16 Leviathan. On the 16th of July 2019, a team from Fast, headed by Granger, with Kazza, Turtle, Munch, Dark, and Lee, went back into the Leviathan for the sub-16. They had no idea how far they could push the time. No new strategies were used, but entrance is much cleaner than the previous record. Gauntlet is cleared using Well of Radiance, while swapping between Lunar Factions and Phoenix Protocol. This allowed players to get their super back in between waves, while spamming Recluse shots at the doors, killing the ads before they even rendered in. For major kills, Mountaintop is used for a very fast kill, even for the solo sides. Running in the Gauntlet now uses the new exotic Astrocyte Verse, which improved blink distance and cooldown at the cost of the faster running speed of Transversives. This trade-off was worth it however, and allowed for much faster blink times, saving about 3 seconds per Gauntlet run, and a few more on the final round. Overall, the team left the Gauntlet 10 seconds ahead of the previous run. The transition to Dogs uses a small sword swipe and irrigation to be able to get across the pipes to the encounter and start it quicker, saving a couple of seconds. Dogs is the same as in the previous run, so we'll skip over it and move on to Baths. For Baths, Mountaintop is once again used, this time to kill the lanterns. This makes it more consistent than the previous strategy of Nova Bombs, but slightly slower. The consistency allowed the player doing the skip to Callus to be more confident in leaving as early as possible for maximum time save. Speaking of the skip, a discovery was made that you could trigger Callus's door from out of bounds, allowing the skip player to stay out of bounds for the entire skip. This is where the majority of the almost 1 minute time save over the previous record came from, along with faster load-in times at Callus. Callus is cleared the same as the previous record, ending the run with a time of 15:24, 50 seconds ahead of the previous week's best. Was sub 15 within reach? Was beating an entire raid, especially one as complex as Leviathan, in only a quarter of an hour even possible? The next week would begin with a Fast X Luminous team, with 5 fast players, Granger, Lippy, Munch, Kazza, and Lee, along with Indica from Luminous. This showed the camaraderie between the two teams, as they were able to exchange players when others were unavailable to run. This would also be the start of many crossovers between these two clans and others in the future, This showed that speedrunning had grown from egos and clan-based battles into a much more mature environment. For this run, entrance is slightly faster, as is the gauntlet, due to small optimizations and just a cleaner run overall. For the dogs to bars transition, 3 players are on world line for faster movement, which saves about 3 seconds compared to the previous runs. Other than that, it's all the same strategies, just executed a bit quicker. At Callus, however, the timer is stopped when the cutscene ends. This is because of the introduction of a new rule, where the timer would be paused from the end of the cutscene at the start of Callus to the ding sound when the Callus encounter starts. This was to remove hardware advantages based on players rejoining the fire team. At Callus, all players rejoin on Warlocks this time, with 4 players being on Nova Bomb and 2 players on Well of Radiance, 1 for the Skulls and 1 for DPS plate. To get to the 3 thrown orbs quicker, players sword skate to them. Through a revolutionary method called actually testing it, it will be later discovered to not save any time, as the time from the teleport in to the first symbol spawning is locked around 8.5 seconds. The players dead for Skulls are revived a lot earlier than in previous runs, and all Nova Bomb Callus' shield. This allows the Nova Bombs to deal damage to Callus before you are normally able to. This is because after the shield breaks, there is a small window where you still have the Force of Will buff, which makes Callus damageable. The discovery was made that if you damage Callus enough before starting the damage phase, it would skip the animation of him breaking down into his new form, which usually happens about after a third of his health is depleted. In previous runs, this was still happening when Callus' health bar reached 0, and players would have to wait for the animation to fully finish before he could go into his final stand. This allowed for 5 more seconds to be saved on Callus, skipping that animation completely. Overall, the timer pause and the new Callus strat, along with a cleaner gauntlet and few mistakes, ended up saving 34 seconds, with a time of 14:51 being the new world record. Would the 15-minute barrier be the last broken in the Leviathan? How much more could the time realistically come down? Well, as the next week began, clans Luminous and Fast would once again form an alliance to obtain the world record. This time, led by Claw and Granger, with Munch, Ziggy, Soto, and me. This run was in the Shadowkeep patch, which changed a lot of things about how the game worked. One large thing was the introduction of rally flags to the raid. Before the start of every encounter, players could place down a consumable flag and gain full ammo and full abilities including super. This allowed for more weapon and super swaps throughout the raid, as players could get them back instantly before starting each encounter, albeit with the time loss of going to the flag, placing, and rallying to it. Entrance is the same as usual for 5 players, with the first 2 players pulling the elevator by using a Well of Radiance floaty grenade to jump all the way up and into the encounter. This allowed the plates to be down about 5 seconds faster than previous runs, where the whole team would have to make it to the elevator, then wait for it to move up to start the encounter. I did say usual for 5 players. The 6th person splits off from the group and heads in a different direction out of bounds. This player will open up the entrance into the underbelly before the gauntlet starts, allowing the pulling of the levers and the waiting at the grate to be skipped, saving 5 seconds on the gauntlet to dogs transition. Because of rally flags, every gauntlet ab wave is cleared using Well of Radiance and Phoenix Protocol, along with 21% Delirium. Due to autoloading being removed, Arbalest is now used to kill the mages in the encounter. With Arbalest being hit scan instead of Mountaintop, which was projectile, the major kills are slightly quicker and definitely more consistent, allowing for some time save over previous runs. At the final gauntlet run, 2 players would do a trick known as the parts glitch. The parts glitch works by having a player's super run out at the same time they pick up the gauntlet orb. This would essentially delete the orb from the game, but still allow the player to be teleported into the gauntlet. This player was then free to sword skate and world line to activate gates. This was used at the final run to allow 2 players to use their swords inside the gauntlet to make the final run a bit faster. In this run, however, Granger missed the part glitch, so it didn't save any time compared to the previous run. Dogs has done the same as the previous run, however players rally the flag before starting the encounter, allowing the players that part glitched in the gauntlet to have a Nova Bomb to kill their dogs with. This slows down the encounter by starting at about a second slower, with another second lost on a less than perfect dog skill. For the dogs to bars transition, all players use world line and sword skate up the drain, saving a couple seconds on average. However, this run Ziggy was slow to his plate, so the transition was equal. Bars is done the same as the previous record up until killing the lanterns, where players use Chaos Reach instead of Mountaintops, saving about 2 seconds on the kill. Rallying the flag is not necessary at bars, because if players play it right, they have just enough time to get their super before damage starts. The Callus skip in this run is much more optimized, and saves about 2 seconds compared to the previous route. On the skip, the first loading zone has a high chance to kill you if you're at high frame rates. World lining and sword skating are FPS based, meaning that you move a bit faster when sword skating and world lining if you have higher FPS. This means it would be a significant time loss to cap at a lower frame rate, so finding a balance where you wouldn't die to the loading zone and still have a fast skip was part of the strategy. At Callus, the timer is paused at 11:05, 11 seconds ahead. For Callus, the only change is the new Divinity Trace Rifle being able to debuff Callus, making the Nova Bombs do up to 2/3 of his health, allowing for a 2-second faster kill. Overall, these small time saves added up to only a 10-second world record of 14:41, not the massive time cuts we're used to seeing. The run was finally beginning to look more and more optimized, with only a few second saves throughout the run for a perfect record. Or so it would seem. On the 31st of December, welcoming in the new year, the next record would be 13:49. That's right, almost a full minute faster. But how? Well, it starts with a patch. This run is the first to be on the Season of Dawn patch, which reworked Icarus Dash. By combining Burst Glide and an Icarus Dash in quick succession, insane speeds could be reached, especially when combined with Sword Skates and World Lines. This was basically a flat time save on all transitions, which gave a reason to rerun all old content, as it could be flat out faster with Icarus Dash alone. Additionally, something was brewing in the gauntlet. The previous week, Sotosolus had discovered that if players stood in certain spots out of bounds in the gauntlet, it was possible to manipulate certain things within the encounter. However, as the week was about to begin, Soto had a surprise trip to Japan and wasn't able to run, so the team consisted of Granger, Claw, Eva, Ziggy, Flux, and me. Entrance is once again slightly different, with only 4 players taking the familiar route to the gauntlet, pulling and starting by standing on the plates. The other 2 players took a route to stand out of bounds of the gauntlet. Now this is where it gets interesting. Gauntlet is now done with only 4 players in bounds. When each gauntlet ad phase starts, the players out of bounds blink up from below the encounter in order to stand next to the runner's gates. This will count the players out of bounds as technically being in the gauntlet, and the gate starts counting down and opening as if there was a player waiting inside to run. This saves about 2 seconds for every run, as you don't have to wait for both runners to instantly pick up their orb in order for that countdown to start. The players go back down in order for them to stop counting as being in the gauntlet, and not cause a bunch of glitches in the gauntlet, including runners being teleported to different sides, and the third round only spawning a major, with both runners being instantly teleported out of the gauntlet and not being able to slam. And no, I'm not kidding.
My gate was closed. I swear to God, if I get teleported again, I'm gonna...
What?
Pretty sure that having to do with your joining out.
What? Huh? Dub?
Wait, what happened?
What? Did we just skip an
Wait.
I can't.
Wait.
No.
This has got to be one of the most ridiculous Destiny glitches in history. The small gauntlet time saves allow the team to be 10 seconds ahead of the previous run on the third slam. However, with only 4 people, the final run would have to be slower. Only one person does the parts glitch on the relic, as 3 slams are needed to finish the encounter. The player on the sword goes forward and activates the first 3 gates. This allows 2 players to stay at the start-finish line, with the 4th player activating the final gate and slamming the final orb. This time loss on the final run meant they only slammed the final orb 5 seconds ahead of the previous run, at 5:43, making a 4:17 gauntlet segment. However, after gauntlet finishes, the 2 people out of bounds transition to dogs instantly, about 45 seconds quicker than a normal transition. The players activate the Joining Allies timer, which starts around 18 to 22 seconds after first killing an enemy in the room. These 2 players then clear all the ads and place down a rally flag at the same time as they start the encounter. This causes the rally flag to stay during the encounter instead of disappearing when it starts, allowing for players to rally during the encounter or even afterwards. On dogs specifically, placing this mid-encounter flag was incredibly difficult, as it seemed to randomly change the timing required, and had a lot to do with our good friend latency. This became a massive pain point for runners, and would lead to a ton of failed runs if it wasn't executed successfully. The joining allies to dogs started at 6:24. This isn't really important now, but more of a baseline time to compare against later. Once the rest of the team are pulled to dogs, instead of grabbing stacks, players instead kill the dogs without any spores. This required full super and at least 2 grenades, which was another reason why the flag was so necessary. After the kill, they rally the flag to get sword ammo and more super energy, and transition to baths. They start baths at 7:58. In under 8 minutes, 2 encounters were already done, and they were starting the 3rd. Bath has done the same, but the person going out of bounds to skip to Callus has to change a few things to account for the changes to Dawnblade. All things normally done during Dawnblade are replaced by Icarus Dash and Worldline, making the skip 3 seconds faster than before. Frames no longer have to be capped, as it is discovered that if you Alt-Tab out of the game, it drops your FPS to 30, and if you do this with the right timing when you enter a load zone, you have 0 chance of dying to the zone. This allowed the skip to be a little bit faster. Timer is paused at 10:19, over 45 seconds ahead. For Callus, players are revived and thrown a lot earlier, and the Nova Bombs are thrown at Callus at around 50 skulls, compared to around 80 skulls previously. Because the animation is still skipped, and Callus still dies quick enough with good enough DPS, this is a 3-second time save compared to previous runs, even with the final stand shield taking a little longer than normal. Surely this run would mark the final minute barrier to be broken. Since the first world record's in the high 20-minute range, almost 15 minutes have been saved in this raid. Absolutely insane, but as you can probably tell by the length of the video, there is still so much more to unravel. With word of Worldline changes coming in the next major update, it looked like the 11th to the 18th of February 2020 would be the final levy week with this movement system. A team made up of Claw, Granger, Soto, Eva, Ziggy, and I stepped up to the entrance for one last time. Entrance is almost identical, with the 2 non-gauntlet players this time going up above the gauntlet gates in order to cause more chaos within. Gauntlet is still done in a 4-man, however the weapon of choice for Ag Clear had changed from 21% Delirium to Martyr's Retribution. This was discovered to allow players to kill the ads before they had fully spawned in, which added up to 3 to 5 seconds saved per ad wave. The players out of bounds still stand in certain spots, this time above the gates to make the initial gate go down quicker. Instead of avoiding all the glitches that come from the players out of bounds, they were embraced and able to be bent in the player's favor, saving about 20 to 25 seconds over the previous run. Each round the runners would swap sides, since the dog runner would always get teleported to Cup on the second ad phase. This wasn't a time save, just something you had to deal with. What was definitely a time save, however, was skipping the ad clear on the third wave and going straight to the major. However, every time save has its downside. It was discovered that only one player could get into the gauntlet for the third round. This was thought to be impossible at first, but with many hours of testing from the community throughout the week, it was made slightly more consistent, but it still required a bit of luck, so many fewer runs made it past the gauntlet. Since only one player was able to slam on the third round, you would need 4 slams in the final round to complete the encounter. This meant no one could part switch the final round. But that didn't matter. Yet another discovery was made related to players out of bounds. If they stood at the right place and moved at the right time, they could activate the gates from outside the gauntlet. Sadly, this only worked on the final round, but it meant the players inbound only had to activate the first and fourth gates, then all go through the finish line and slam. The timing lined up well for the players out of bounds as well, as they were able to transition to dogs just as quickly as before, with their joining allies timer being pushed more and more to the limit. Gauntlet ends at 5:09, a blistering 34 seconds ahead of the previous week's run, with an insane 3:35 gauntlet segment. Dogs joining allies starts at 5:53, only 30 seconds ahead of the previous. Dogs plays out the same, with the 2 inconsistencies of the gauntlet TP and the dogs flag, meaning a lot of good rungs were dying to things outside of the player's control. Dogs ended at 6:27, 30 seconds ahead. Baths and Cows were the same as the previous run, with the team carrying the 30-second time save throughout the whole run, ending with a time of 13:17, 32 seconds faster than the previous run. Not long after this run, on March 10th, 2020, the speedrun community was devastated by the release of Season of the Worthy, and the removal of a feature dear to the hearts of tens of thousands of players. With one simple sentence, dreams were crushed, and thousands of hours from speedrunners and the like were wiped away like a tear in the rain. Glide can no longer be activated during sword attacks or other full-body melee attacks. This meant that worldlining and sword skating, the 2 main movement mechanics for speedruns, were now impossible. It looked like the 13:17 would be the final Leviathan raid world record, with initial runs after the patch clocking in almost a full minute slower. After the majority of players went on hiatus in Season of Worthy, on the 9th of June, a new season would arise in Arrivals. The waters were tested in order to see how much slower everything would be, with a 1331 Leviathan being achieved. The 1317 stood for 160 days. On July 30th, 2020, it was beaten. No world line, no sword skating, it was beaten. Clan Luminous, consisting of Claw, Naya, Soto, Eva, Ziggy, and myself, would be the ones to do it. For entrance, players must now be launched down the runway, and the entrance is overall slightly slower. A faster method of activating the plates is executed, where the first two players go straight for the plates, while the third places the rally flag, instead of the first player placing the rally flag and then activating the plates. This meant that Gauntlet was only started 2 seconds slower than in the 1317. In the Gauntlet, a new strategy of ad clear is used, where all players shoot their martyr shots at the same time, which updates the game, preventing the spawn of extra ads that would slow down the encounter. If working correctly, each side should get 5 ad spawns, 3 from one door and 2 from the other, before the major spawns. For the third round of the Gauntlet, a discovery is made by Nightmare Clan that allows one player to get into the Gauntlet 100% of the time. It is done by blocking the spot where the runner would usually be teleported out, forcing the only place to go to be inside the Gauntlet. Unfortunately, this still only allowed for one player running on the third round, but the consistency was already enough for a new record. It meant that many more runs would make it past Gauntlet, where the first main run-ender was the dog's mid-encounter rally flag. Another time save on the final Gauntlet round was the discovery that the out-of-bounds players could stand in one spot to activate the gates, meaning they could leave for the dog's transition almost instantly. The activation of the fourth gate was also more optimized, meaning the out-of-bounds players could leave as soon as possible, saving 6 seconds on the joining allies to dogs. The Gauntlet end in this run was 5:13, 4 seconds slower than the previous record, making a 3:47 segment. The Gauntlet to dogs transition was even more optimized, saving 5 seconds, and with joining allies starting at 5:52, 1 second faster. Because of the horrible dog kill I had in the 1317, even with some time loss, the dogs is done much cleaner, and ends 6 seconds ahead at 6:21. For the transition to baths, one player is launched up the drain in order to make it to the grate at the end as fast as possible. In order to make up for the lost speed from not being able to sword skate or world line, all the players had to be on Icarus Dash for the transition, meaning getting their super at baths was going to be tight. Baths started at 7:25, only 2 seconds ahead of the pre-patch record, due to the time lost from the transition. To get the chaos reaches for the lanterns, players used a combination of 100 intellect, Netherrack Sin, paired with a Void Sniper and double remote connection mods for bonus super energy on sniper rifle kills, and finally, topping off with Geomag stabilizers. With all that, they would just get their supers in time for the lantern kill. The skip to Callus was also different due to the sword skating and world line changes, but only lost a couple seconds compared to the pre-patch skip. The pause was at 9:47, 3 seconds ahead of pre-patch. Callus is pretty scuffed in this run, with the revives not being chained perfectly, which lost some more time. The team still ends up with a time of 13:15, finally defeating the pre-world line patch time. The record was beaten, but with the team unhappy and a ton of time on the table, was sub 13 the next logical goal? The next week would see a returning name, with all new players. Clan Sillamar would be the next to hold the record, with a team of Tsunami, Nova, Purdy, Treasy, Crayons, and Spop. Could it be the elusive sub 13? For entrance, a new route is taken by one player. This route is faster than the traditional entrance, and allows the Gauntlet to be started up to 10 seconds quicker. This run, however, the entrance is not yet refined, and slight mistakes are made with only a 3-second faster start than the 1315. In Gauntlet, a Martyr shot paired with 2 Xenophage shots allows for faster major kills, along with fast ad spawns. This, combined with an overall cleaner Gauntlet, allowed for a 13-second time save of the previous run, ending Gauntlet at 5 minutes flat. A cleaner transition to dogs started joining allies at 5:37, and a faster dog skill saved about 4 more seconds on the previous run, ending dogs at 6:04. 17 seconds ahead. A bad baths transition cost the team around 2 to 3 seconds over the previous run, starting baths at 7:10, 15 seconds ahead. Sub 13 barely in reach. The Callus pause was at 9:34, only 13 seconds ahead, with some time lost on the skip. Players that did these skips had a ton of respect in the community, as they were able to perform the hardest movement under the highest pressure conditions, times when everything is counting on them after an insane paced run, and a single slip up could mean the run was dead. Callus was about the same as the previous run, ending with a time of 13 minutes and 1 second. So close to the elusive milestone, once only a dream, now within reach. Sub 13. However, Bungie decided to throw yet another spanner in the works for the teams running. All raids except for Last Wish and Garden of Salvation were to be vaulted from the game on November 10th. This meant there was one last chance to run Levy on the God rotation. One final Levy week. This last chance started on October 13th, 2020. For the first day, no new records were set. Teams were still warming up, practicing routes and strategies. On the second day, Sub 13 happened. A team from Breeze, Polar, Dax, Meister, Baked, Leaf, and Slew obtained a time of 12:59. This run was not very good, but it got past the dog flag, so the team decided to finish the run for practice, ending up with the first ever sub 13 minute Leviathan.
I'll go 59.99.
That's definitely a 59.
Yo!
I was late. That's 59. That's definitely 59.
The next day, Silmar took back the record with a 12:56. In this run, the gauntlet was exceptionally bad, however the rest of the run made up most of the time, with some decent pace. Estimated times for the week looked to be in the low 1240s or high 1230s on a perfect run. That same day, the Luminous team from the 1315, me, Claw, Naya, Soto, Ziggy, and Eva, took back the record for the first time in 12 weeks, at 12:54, with plenty more time to be saved. Later in the day, the Breeze team would also tie this run. Due to urgent family matters and circumstances out of the team's control, the Luminous team was sadly unable to run for most of the week, and this would be the final time they would hold the world record. Day 4. Silmar retook the record with a 12:51. Each day seemed to lower the record by just a few seconds. With bated breath, the entire community were on the edge of their seats, as these three teams battled against each other and against the fast approaching deadline. Day 5. A final shakeup. Towards the end of runs for the day, a new strategy was discovered by members of Breeze Clan. A team of Crimson, Chris, Theo, Gunnar, Tet, and Cyclone had discovered a way to completely remove the joining allies from an encounter. The way it worked was by activating the Castellum door from the opposite side, right after the joining allies started. This tricks the game into thinking the Castellum had just been completed, which removes the joining allies to allow players to go to the next encounter. The way they discovered this was that Chris and Theo were having a very bad entrance, and by accident hit the Castellum load zone right as Gauntlet was started, thus removing the joining allies. As players investigated this further, Vortex and Kid found an incredible use for it. If it was done between Baths and Callus, it would allow the player skipping to be at Callus as soon as Baths ended. This would save around 25 seconds compared to previous runs, plus remove the dependence on the skip player being as fast as possible. A total game changer. The sixth day, Silmar would achieve 12:28, a decent time using the new skip strategy. And on October 18th, 2020, at 3:04 PM EST, the final Leviathan Raid World Record Speedrun would begin. Entrance launches are the same as previous weeks, however all 4 Gauntlet players take the new entrance route, allowing for incredibly quick Gauntlet starts. In this run, 6 seconds faster than the previous week's time. At Gauntlet, everything plays out the same as the previous run, with some time losses from major kills evening out to a 4:54 Gauntlet end, 6 seconds ahead of the previous week. Joining allies to dogs is also faster due to more optimized transitions, however the joining allies only starts a certain time after the end of Callus's voice line. This meant that there was a certain level of RNG based on which voice line played during that run, as they were randomized. A slight time loss on a dog kill lost a second, finishing dogs 5 ahead of last week at 5:59. Under 6 minutes, the first 2 encounters were already done. A much faster bars transition saved almost 5 seconds compared to the previous weeks, starting bars at 7 minutes flat. However, when it came time to damage the lanterns, one player didn't have Chaos Reach in time, so about 2 seconds was lost to the other 2 players having to cover for him. Due to the new skip, the timer pauses exactly 24 seconds after the lanterns are dead, at 9 minutes flat. Defeating Callus was all they needed. Coming to a point like this in a run, tensions are at an absolute high. You can imagine what the players are feeling when they're all performing their jobs as best they can, with the knowledge that any tiny mistake that they make could cost the entire run, and perhaps never get another one. This time, however, nerves were no issue, and the team closed out the run with an insanely good Callus segment. As Callus wrapped up his monologue for the final time, the timer laid to rest at 12 minutes, 23 seconds. Forged through fire and set in stone, 12:23 is the final Leviathan speedrun. This has been a monumental journey over 3 years long, bringing the time down from 27 minutes to 12. Over 70 individual players making up over 20 different teams can say that they've held this prestigious world record. The amount of skips, strategies, and optimizations that were developed week after week kept the run fresh and interesting for the entire time. Seeing runners push themselves and the game to the absolute limits was truly amazing, and I'm incredibly grateful to have been a part of it. By far this has been my favorite raid to speedrun, and the experiences I shared with my teammates and competition alike is something I will cherish forever. The Leviathan will go down in history as one of the most competitive, most fun, and most interesting speedruns in Destiny, and perhaps even in the wider speedrun community. From the support and messages I've received while making this video, I know that I speak for the whole community when I say that we all miss this raid, and the game just isn't the same without it. This video took a ton of work and has been my passion project for a very long time, so any support you can show is greatly appreciated. Also, you can check out all of the speedruns in their entirety in the description of the video. Thank you for watching, 07 Guardians.